Welcome to Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. Today we're going to talk about Guardian by Cathy McCrumb. It's lunch day. It is the conclusion of the Children of the Consortium series, and I was privileged enough to be on the launch team. As you know, I read this book in December, and I'm awaiting my physical copy at the time of filming. And to the surprise of no one, I loved this book. My written review is up. I will, as always, my blog is linked in the social links down below. And I can't talk in detail about this book because it is the third in the series. And the first two books are, let's see if I can grab them over here. The first book is Recorder. And the second book is Aberration. And I love these. These are science fiction. And they tell a continuous story. So there is no time gap between books. So where book one ends, book two picks up. Book two ends, book three picks up. And as you all know, it was one of my favorite books of 20. The first two were one of my favorite books of 20. Actually, they were all some of my favorite books of 2023. And it is unique among science fiction in that it is uplifting and hopeful science fiction. So in our third book, all the events of the first two books have come to an end or come to a head, and Recorder, who is still unnamed when book three opens, although her crewmates call her by a variety of names, but she herself has not shared her name. She is... I can't talk about details without spoiling things, and I don't want to do that. Let's just say things have come to a head, and she is facing life or death decisions quite literally. And Recorder, being whom she is, always puts others before herself, and not in a people-pleasing, self-deprecating fashion, but rather she understands the risks and consequences of her choices and still puts her crewmates and her friends above herself. Even her quote-unquote enemies, she attempts to save. And she doesn't do this out of an innate selfishness or an inability to stand up for herself. It is much more because she values their worth as individuals, and she sees that those people have the ability to enact a greater change, and she is willing to sacrifice herself for the betterment of all. No, she has no savior complex. She doesn't think she's a messiah of any kind. She doesn't think she's the, beacon of the world. There's none of that. She has next to no ego. It's just she's calculated the odds, and the odds say that if, do this is probably what's going to happen, and these are the consequences I will personally face, potentially. It's just... It is a beautiful story. And it's a big old chonker of a book. It's 500 plus pages on e-reads, on, the Kindle version. And I devoured every page of it. I loved it so much that it was a potential reread for me before I did this video. And I said that back in December. However, if you saw my 24 and 24 video with Dave, you know that he has way too many big, thick books on my list for me to read another big, thick book to reread it. So that didn't happen. But it was a very good potential. And I can't talk about the book in depth, but I will talk about why the series as a whole is amazing. And I don't think you need to be a sci-fi fan to enjoy this series. Yes, it takes place in space. Yes, there are great big giant scary bugs. No, it doesn't have, there are no Star Wars or, Star Trek-y type battles, and there are no real aliens. It's a human story. It's a story about love. It's a story about finding yourself. So, Recorder, our main character, is gifted to the consortium as an infant, which is how a lot of families choose to deal with unwanted children. It's a very weird political system. It makes sense within the context of the book. And children of the consortium where she was raised she's chosen to be a recorder who are supposed to be unbiased, completely neutral recorders of facts and events throughout society. And as such, her emotions are shut down by technology so that she shows no emotion on anything. She has no hair, she has no name, she is a number. She is basically erased as an individual and is just there to observe and record. She's sent on a mission. Mission goes haywire. Her technology fails. And to save her life, the ship's doctor has to remove the emotion suppressing technology from her head. And said removal sets in motion the chain of events that take place over the trilogy. And you see Recorder go from this blank slate, nameless, emotionless, almost just a human cyborg type character to a young woman who has to face the fact that she now has emotions and likes, and everything she's ever known in life has suddenly been stripped away from her. And she had no say in the matter. And that removal of suppression technology has inextricably altered the course of her life. And as the books progress, you see her deal with the consequences. You see her face up to the fact that she can no longer go back to what she once was. And she has to move forward. And she does. And she is this incredibly, beautifully strong character that is just unique in the science fiction world. I don't know a better description for her. She is unique in the science fiction world. And she has every reason to be just so traumatized by the events that have occurred in book one to her that she should be a stationary, blubbering mess trying to figure out how to put one foot in front of the other. And she is not. And she never turns into that. Instead, she looks it in the face and goes, I am better than this. I will move forward. I will deal with it. And yes, it sneaks up on her. And yes, some things catch her unaware. And still, she doesn't let that slow her down. And book three is just a culmination of everything that's been building in the first two books. And it explodes into this beautifully written, action-packed, tense narrative of, will she survive? Will I learn her name? What happens to her crewmates? What happens to the consortium as a whole? Cathy is an amazing author. And I was so blessed to read this book early. I do not understand why this is not far more highly publicized and loved within the science fiction community. Yes, there's a little strain of romance. Is it the predominant theme of the book? No. I wouldn't classify this as a space opera. I would just this is just a human story set in space, which is what science fiction is at its best for me. Yes, I like some hard science fiction. Yes, I read some technical science fiction on occasion. But in general, like my, stories and other subgenres, I like my science fiction that's character driven and story driven, and this is exactly what that is. And Guardian is the perfect title for this book. It is the perfect title for her. I loved this book. I loved everything about this book. And I highly, highly recommend the entire series. So if you're looking to dip your toe into science fiction and you don't know where to start and you love a good character-driven story, then please, please go pick up the Children of the Consortium series. It is now complete. You can read all the way through and not have to stop and wait. And you will be thankful you do not have to stop and wait, because it is that fantastic. It just is. It's that fantastic. So, congratulations, Cathy. Congratulations, Enclave Publishing, for citing Cathy and publishing this amazing story. And leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.